Hello, this is Bailey Leasure, and this is the Leasure Sports Podcast. This week, I'm going to be talking about how pitchers and catchers have reported for the Arizona Diamondbacks and my expectations for them this upcoming season. We'll be talking about some games that the Coyotes have played since my last podcast, including a big game against the defending Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll be talking about news going around the NFL offseason and some big moves that the New York Giants made, including cutting big receiver and big fan favorite Victor Cruz and how that could potentially impact the Arizona Cardinals. Talking about players that I think the Cardinals should re-sign and potentially go after this upcoming offseason, and what I think they should do in free agency and what they should probably do in the draft. And then I'll be talking about Zane Gonzalez and how he could be a big player in the upcoming draft as well. So we're gonna start this week, and I'm gonna talk about this week and how spring training is almost here. As a sports fan and as a sports viewer, I'm really glad to see baseball season's coming back. It's gonna be near, and spring training is gonna be near, and then opening day is gonna be here. Really hoping. For another good year. I mean, it was a great season last year as far as a baseball viewership, and it was great to see great postseason, especially that World Series and that Game 7. And I don't think for a while there's going to be anything that's going to follow it up, but it's gotten a lot of people, including myself, back and interested in baseball. So I'm hoping for another good season from every baseball team, especially the big teams, the Cubs, and hopefully we get another good postseason. So the Arizona Diamondbacks pitchers and catchers have reported, and so we'll see what happens with that. Talk about the expectations I have for the Arizona Diamondbacks. 2016 in a way, even though it wasn't as bad, it kind of reminded me of 2014. But with more expectations, I think the Arizona Diamondbacks, they should really try to aim for what they did in 2015. They won 63 games in 2014. In 2015, they won 79 games. So I kind of see them doing that. I think they'll probably win 80, maybe 80, 81 games. They'll probably be either under 500 or 500. I think there's still some question marks at pitching as there's been for the last couple of years. I think the bullpen, there's a lot more question marks there. I think the Diamondbacks, if Greinke's able to have a bounce back season, if AJ Pollock's able to stay healthy, and if Paul Goldschmidt has an MVP caliber year, and the rest of the players are able to do well behind those big three players, I think the Diamondbacks, they'll probably win 80 to 85 games, So, I don't see them contending for a wild card spot, there's still I think a couple of seasons away from actually going out and competing for that division. If they still had Dansby Swanson, I'd probably say, yeah, they'd be in a position, but it's not the case. So that's my prediction for the Diamondbacks. I'm going to move on to the Coyote news. Coyotes in their last 10 games, they've been on a good run. The last game they played against the Edmonton Oilers, they lost 5-2, which is kind of weird because in the Dave Tippett era, up until this year, obviously this is a new Edmonton Oilers team, and they're playing really good, but they had like a 23-point streak against the Edmonton Oilers, something like that lasted for a while. So, obviously, and the fact that they wanted to give Mike Smith a night off. So we'll see what happens there. But the Coyotes, they did pretty well in this stretch of games. In the last couple of weeks, actually, it kind of goes back to when they played a really, they lost in regulation, but they had a decent game against the Chicago Blackhawks. They had a shootout win against the San Jose Sharks. They went into they got a point against the Montreal Canadiens. They beat a big game last Saturday against the defending Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins, as they were able to beat them in overtime from a goal from Connor Murphy, and that was his first goal of the year. So what a goal! What a time to get your first goal of the year in overtime against the Pittsburgh Penguins, one of the best teams in the NHL, and they're probably going to be a contender and probably potentially favored to win the Stanley Cup again this year. So, well, that's a big game. And then a big whooping that they did on the Calgary Flames, 5-0. Good outing from Mike Smith. And a big game from Christian Dvorak, and he's really been improving lately. So I think the rookies are starting to improve this year, and I think that's a good sign for the future of the Coyotes. So Martin Hansel's been playing pretty good. I think I like him as a player, but I think he's probably going to be one of those players that the Coyotes come trade deadline, they're going to be definitely sellers this year. So I think if they trade for him, he's going to be a free agent potentially. They can get a lot for him, and you never know. They could potentially re-sign him in the offseason. So, Coyotes are they've been doing pretty well. They're going to be playing the LA Kings tonight. So, they play a really good game against them. I think that's a good sign for them in the future, that they can play against big teams, such as the Penguins and the Blackhawks and the Sharks and some other big teams. So, moving on to some of the news now that it's the NFL offseason, long offseason. The Giants made some pretty surprising moves from a cap standpoint and from player standpoint when they cut Victor Cruz and Rashad Jennings. My thoughts are on it. Victor Cruz, it kind of surprises me, but I kind of see them cutting him for money-wise because he's been hurt a lot in recent years. He didn't play at all in 2015. 2016, it wasn't really that big. He kind of got overshadowed by Odell Beckham, and some other players. So yeah, I kind of see they got to make some they got to remove some of that cap, and I think the Giants, they might be one of those teams if Adrian Peterson becomes a free agent, which I think he will. Maybe they go after him, especially after cutting Rashad Jennings. That's another big player, but he wasn't really a big running back. That Giants offense centers around the passing game with Eli Manning and centers around Odell Beckham. The running game kind of, if they get Adrian Peterson, they could really contend with the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. I think they'll, if they get it, I think if they sign a player like Adrian Peterson, I know he was injured last year, and his age, that was really a season where his age started to show. I think the Giants, they'll definitely be head to head with the Dallas Cowboys. So I saw an article relating to that. A lot of people were asking, should the Cardinals pursue Victor Cruz, even though because that's one of the things they need to address, which I think they will. The receiver wise, I don't know if it's going to be in the draft or it's going to be in free agency, but I think they need to address it. But I don't think Victor Cruz is good. I don't really see him as a good fit. I think they have Cardinals. I think they're going to need a big, maybe not a slot or speedy wide receiver, but they're going to need one of those big guys to go down the field and go up against big corners, and I don't see Victor Cruz doing that. Deshaun Jackson's another free agent. Maybe the Cardinals look at him, but obviously the Cardinals, I don't think they're going to have a lot of money to spend this offseason. So, they're going to, and plus they have a lot of free agents that they have to re-sign, which segues greatly into my next point, some of the free agents that they have to address. Chandler Jones, his name's been coming up recently. I think, there's a lot of talk. Can they use the franchise tag on him? I think they'll use the franchise tag on him. He's 20. I believe he's 26. The Cardinals would love to have him for a long time, and I think he's a big player. He really made a big impact when it came to the pass rushing. The Cardinals the previous year, They didn't do well in pass rushing, and the next year the Cardinals did very well, and it got them to the number 2 defense in the entire NFL. Obviously, record-wise, overall for the Cardinals, it was disappointing as they missed the playoffs, but he really made an impact, and I think he can make an impact for years to come. We'll see what they do. There's Calais Campbell's another big player they would love to re-sign, but I think he's 30, so there might be questions. Should we pay him a lot? I think if for the right money, I'd love to see Calais Campbell back. I think he's a big fan favorite here, and I think he's really important to that Cardinal team. So we'll see when it comes to that. DJ Swearinger and Tony Jefferson, those are some other big free agents, and they were big players last year. I don't see them re-signing Tony Jefferson. DJ Swearinger maybe, but Jefferson, I think they can't pay everybody, and they're not going to have that much cap room. So we'll see what happens there. But those are my thoughts on that. And now I'm going to be talking about my last piece of news, which was the news earlier this week. Zane Gonzalez. He was the only player invited to the NFL Combine from the state of Arizona, which was not a good season for either college football team in Arizona. U of A and ASU had very disappointing seasons. That they didn't get a bowl game, and they only won 8 or 9 games combined between the two teams. So not really good. But Zane Gonzalez, he's a big, last year he set the record for most college or field goals made in college football history. So I think I could see him being a kicker that gets drafted. I hope, and I definitely think that's a player the Arizona Cardinals should look at. Maybe not draft highly. Don't do what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Oakland Raiders did in the past. But I think Zane Gonzalez, I could see him as an Arizona Cardinal being a good fit and being a fan favorite. There's obviously been past Sun Devils that have been Arizona Cardinals, such as Pat Tillman and Jake Plummer. But Zane Gonzalez, I think that, especially with how Chandler Catanzaro was a very hit or miss kicker, I think he could be a very good kicker, and he could, obviously the NFL is a different level as far as kicking, and there's a lot more pressure. But I think that the Cardinals, I think Zane Gonzalez, he could be a good fit. I think that's a player they should look at, and I think he'd be a great fit for them. So that's going to pretty much do it for my news this week. Kind of a short podcast, not much going on since the NFL season ended, and I had a lot to recap last week from the Super Bowl. So obviously when the offseason and spring training starts, I'm going to be talking more about that. It's kind of slow right now when it comes to professional sports. Didn't talk much about the Suns. I know the All-Star game's coming up, but I'm not really big on basketball. If you guys want me to talk about it more, feel free to comment. So that's going to do it for my podcast this week. Follow me on Twitter at BaileyLeasure96. If you like the video, click like, comment if you agree or disagree, or your thoughts on other Arizona sports news and what I should talk about. I'd love the feedback. If you like the channel, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. Probably going to see a podcast next week. Have a good week, and I'll see you all later.